Camera rolling.
Okay.
Audio rolling. Lights good. Ready.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tompkins, for coming again to share your story. We would like for you to start off with your presidency, or your experience as being the chairman of the BSU. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, it was a little build up to that prior to it. We'll go that summer prior to me becoming chair.
What year was that?
1970, I believe. I believe so. That previous semester at San Francisco State, there was a lot of chaos with the department and Hayakawa and his efforts and the state's efforts of, as I would call it, de-intellectualization of ethnic study, of black studies, dumbing down, searching for mediocrity within. Because the initial faculty, out of the 11 positions, 9 were PhDs. They got rid of faculty and fired them because they didn't want young, bright faculty members who would then stand up behind principals and speak up on the issues and weren't worried about, oh geez, can I make that mortgage payment or that family or those other economic ties, as well as political lack of intervention or involvement in the community. What Hayakawa did is that he turned around and hired Lucille and Woodrow Jones, who knew nothing about black studies or the whole concept, but hired them and put them in charge. And the faculty then had Randy Sims and would not recognize Lucille and Woodrow. So there was chaos. And I must state, we had some very strong women within on this campus and in the Black Students Union, in that the sister who was working there, she was known as Carlotta Simon. And she lived in my old neighborhood over there in Ingleside. And Carlotta was a work study student who was doing all the payroll and keeping things moving when the college then would change and change the guidelines and change. She would go through and do this. Later on in life, Carlotta became an outstanding principal in the Oakland School District. She was then became a Muslim who was known as Darmullah. So I don't want to be disrespectful, but as kids, we knew her as Carlotta, on campus and all. And so with this confusion, seeing that the college would not allow the black studies in terms of community involvement, there were many things that they systematically, and I'll talk about that in terms of the BSU and what they did to us systematically in destroying and taking down, and the next group of students organization. I'll talk about what they did to the Pan-African Student Union as well. We then moved off campus to have a type of program that we felt would then benefit the black community. It was called the College for Struggle. It was a struggle. You had two different political ideologies there. You had the cultural nationalists and the revolutionary nationalists. Those who were with the Black Panther Party had a philosophy similar to the Black Panther Party, and those in the Karenga crowd. So these two conflicts, and I'm sitting on the board. Who else was there? Was Benny Stewart, Leroy Goodwin, who was also, were all part of the old BSU. And then you had Randy Sims, Margaret Pulley, Norman Brown's wife. Norman was part of the core group, and he did a lot of good in the city. In the background, I'm gonna just put it out there. Bill Bradley, alias Tashaka, his paychecks came in as Bill Bradley, okay? Held a meeting that all the board wasn't invited to, and turned around and inspired or gave inspiration for Randy and Margaret to turn around and fired Leroy off of the board, said you're no longer on the board, and made this a public announcement, and wanted to redistribute workload. So excuse me, but you can't do that and announce it until the board meets. They want to call it the family. The board, whatever you want to call it. We have to meet to have this debate. You just can't arbitrarily do this nonsense. So that did occur. We had put a stop to that. That, among other activities, caused the demise. I had a philosophical difference in that one, we should do both, because the bulk of our people are here on campus, as well as then let's develop this outreach, this development out here in the community. We almost became a cult where they narrowed, didn't want to deal with other people and the rest. The disputes got too heavy, too strong, got personal, and I'll leave it at that. I won't go into what went down let other people save face, but I don't play them games. You don't threaten me. There will be consequences. So it broke up. Because we had gotten the building from the redevelopment agency for $1. So there was an opportunity to deal with it, but through dishonesty is the best way to put it, and not being upfront. That whole division fell apart, and unfortunately, the School of Ethnic Studies was under siege at all times. So after that, I became chairman in the fall of the Black Students Union.
So you're talking particularly about the College of Struggle that you all created, in which you had an ideal that the two factions could come together, the culture nationalists as well as the revolutionary nationalists. Mm-hmm. However, that's not what happened.
It didn't. The ideological and the dishonesty. One group, the cultural nationalists, having a secret meeting and plotting and telling the group here, this is how you should do it, and the rest over at Bill Bradley's place on a weekend. And Norman Brown's wife spilled the beans in the meeting. And that's some of the guys who are trying to hit on a married woman there at his meeting. And she went off and told everything. So that's how we found out what was going on. So that just, as my mama would say, that you broke your dinner plate with me.
Was the College of Struggle and continuation of the experimental college?
No, that was totally, the experimental college was over there. This was an outgrowth of that conflict with higher Cowan administration, with having Lucille and Woodrow as being the department chair, and the fight of having Randy Sims. Randy Sims was over here. He changed his name to another African name, which I don't know, when he was here with me, so I don't want to disrespect the brother. But that was how I knew him when I worked with him, the name he operated under. When he changed his name, he was back east. So I'm not back east, so I know he changed, but I don't know the name. This split was nothing from the experimental college. It was from the controversial and the problems that were taking place here in Black Studies and setting a direction. And they said, we always, from when Jimmy Garrett set it up, BSU had an off-campus operation in the community, and you had the on-campus operation of the BSU. This is sort of like, it wound up, hell, if we can't have a type of Black studies that address the needs of Black people, then let's take it to the community and build there. And that's what it was. And some of the educational differences we had, it was almost like I'm fighting Booker T. Washington in terms of just get basic skills and not, because of my education and my preference in terms of chemistry and sciences, we need to, I'm almost like Du Bois in terms of the technical skills for management and running things. But I also brought others, truck owning operation and others for skills. If you just quit fighting it, cut out the nonsense, the owner said, I will work with you and train people, but you have to stop this nonsense. I'm trying to deal with trying to get them there. Not a piece of work. Cut out the nonsense and so sit down and see what we can develop. That didn't work, unfortunately, and the college for struggle fell apart. And I remained on campus, and that following fall, I became chairman of the Black Student Union, basically because everybody's gone. Benny was in law school, Leroy was in law school. Either you graduated or you were in jail. So you can call my administration like Reconstruction after the strike.
Can you tell me what year there was?
1970. 1970, in the fall. 1970, yes. And it was building. What do we do? And I went through 3 different groups of people for the Central Committee of the Black Student Union. People had different reasons for wanting to join, but very few want to work. When the work comes up in organizations, people fade away and scatter. People want to say, I'm the chair, I'm running this. We finally, on the 3rd group, had a core group of people that hung it. And to this day, they were the Central Committee that Eugene Johnson, Ron Bentley, Richmond, Tommy Sellers, Rowe. I'm sorry, I can't remember the last name. Time is catching up with me. That was the core of the Black Student Union. I begged Eugene Johnson to come in because I can't be the vice president of the student body, and it's just too much. I can't. And so Eugene finally capitulated and gave in, and we worked together and started building BSU and building our accomplishments that I'm proud of. First, your child care center, when I was VP of the student body, we set that up. When I was VP of the student body, we exchanged the lease agreement that the associated students have on the gallery lounge, which was part of what the student union current building is built on, and part of the educational building. It's part of the built on the old associated students lease. And we exchanged that for the property that currently by the dorms is where it's at. And we were the first to build a child care center, period, on all 18 campuses. and with a sliding affordable scale for mothers to be able to go to school. They didn't have that before. Just like Black Studies never existed until others. Innovation, that's what I love, is creativity and innovation. Mediocrity is our enemy, just to do enough to get by. That's why I'm rough on my students when I'm teaching and the rest. I'm always, I want you to be the leadership. Take over, run it, be in charge, develop new ideas. You can't keep doing what we did. Hell, times have changed. Therefore, your tactics, your ideas should be addressing what are the current conditions you are facing. Some things are the same, which you hate. We still see our children being murdered in the street. But we need to change also what we're doing. How do we approach it? Innovation is the key. That's one of my greatest criticisms with the current department. Ron Bentley, dear friend of mine, he was on the Central Committee. Ron and I wrote the first Master's of Arts degree for Black Studies in 1971. We submitted that to the black faculty, to Injasani, Ray Richardson, Alma Maxwell. Mistakes. One of my mistakes, regret, it wasn't regret, but I wish I had a better decision I could have made. The Jones and Jones, after this chaos with Randy and Lucille and Woodrow, then an interim solution was Martin Jones. Martin, I worked for him when I was part of the Presidium, and I worked in the EOP program. Martin was blind, and his son Calvin has his doctorate as well. Martin was a brilliant musician. He knew Sun Ra, Roland Kirk, all the rest. He brought some of the entertainers. He was gifted. But he didn't have the administrative skills. We needed to take it to the next level. I went to Asa Hilliard, who was my mentor when he was department chair at secondary. And I asked Asa, okay, we have the BA, we have a teaching credential. At that time we had it in secondary education, we had a single subject teaching credential, Black Studies, that you can teach social sciences as well with it. So to give you a wide variety in terms of courses you can teach there in secondary education. You weren't limited. I had the third to last teaching credential in that. Also, I administered, because I was then teaching at Ben Franklin, first assignment. And so I was a supervising teacher for the university, for the college, on the last two teaching credentials in Black Studies that were issued by the state of California. I knew both of the people very well prior to this from high school, and the other brother was participating in the BSU. But just hurt my heart. Ron and I submitted this as student juniors here at San Francisco State, just as Marianne and Jimmy did as juniors. Funny parallel that this is the same. We submitted to the black faculty. I typed this out hand on an old hand typewriter on onion paper, because I can't type worth a damn still to this day. I gotta get help. But I typed it on onion skin so I could erase it and type back over rather than a regular white paper. We submitted, he was supposed to make copies for the faculty. Somehow this got lost. After they saw what we done, Ray Richardson, Alma, and I, we sat in the ed building and went over some of the stuff. Then they moved, okay, give it to Injasani, let's moved to the faculty at large, because also we included part-time faculty was a part of it. Part of this also during the days when I was there is that we sat in this room and that the BSU helped run Black Studies. I would turn around and learn what faculty allocation time was from ASA. I sat on the academic senate as vice president of the student body, and I, of course, went to the Senate and sat on the finance committee as well. How the money is flowing. Learned that from Willie Brown sitting on the Ways and Means Committee, because Willie had the smarts, and I stood up and learned from others, that the school budget, they'd send it with Vice President Smith and directly give it to Willie Brown so that San Francisco State would get the money, since Willie is also a graduate of San Francisco State. So he had a great influence on this. But we sat here from faculty, where are you going? How do you manage the budget? How are you going to deal with the conversion? As I talk about the extension division of the college, which was never developed here, which is an asinine. That's a whole source of income where you could have had, as we did when I was teaching over at Vista College, Department Chair of International Trade, that I wrote courses on how to do business in Africa and on the different nations. The business community would love this. The government, the federal government, supports these type of operations. No. That is a source of money and finance that could be coming in and helping expand the department. Never developed. They never developed the BA while we were here. I'll talk about with Philip McGee and myself and what we did then. But all of that, that's part of the failures, in my opinion. That where's the growth? When I look at the current department, my criticism, the growth. You were using, damn it, when I was here and later in the 80s, I'm looking at the green sheets when you do course description. I told Gary Mariam, they're using what you wrote back in the 60s, early 60s, for currently justified classes today. That is nonsense. Then where's the growth? They lost the teaching credential. When I went to the shopping, they asked, what about the teaching credential? He didn't even know that we had lost it, and the state has taken it away. And you're the department chair? Where's the career for these students? You're not keeping up with how you're being attacked. It was just, I just looked at him and walked away from him. Couldn't deal with that. Considering my friends died, were executed when they went back to Africa because of their involvement in the strike. I helped raise funds with them for Papa. Papa was to the left of the ANC. Pouye was executed. People died. People did anywhere from 6 months to 6 years to establish this. Black Studies and what we fought for. You breaks my heart when I sit back and I remember. But then as you saw the pictures, then you saw smiles on my face at the times and the good times we had as well. So we created also, when I was chairman of the BSU, thing Eugene Johnson and I, Eugene Johnson was the gentleman who became chair after me, that we had more black students graduate from San Francisco State than any other time. We had set up black students in science, black students in media, black students in business, and setting up the old system that Jimmy and others, what we had mentors and those are in there to help. I was doing research in chemistry. My Rizal Carter He was taking chemistry. Well, come here, brother. Forget the YouTube. Come over here and get on the machine. Let me show you how to do it. Brazel's an intern in medicine, and then I drive to Richmond to have my brother take care of me. Brazel and I have been knowing each other since junior high school. It's just, I'm blessed. I still have friends. And it just so happens that 4 of my partners became physicians. They still look after me. 3 are still alive, and they kind of look after me. So I'm still here. You got to have doctors you can trust. I've been in the hospital. I've seen the worst, running a hospital lab. I've seen the worst of medicine practice, and I've seen the best of medicine practice as well. I wish racism wasn't a factor, but it is in science today. That's part of what I'm fighting today in terms of the chemistry and risk assessment, because the medical model that they use in risk assessment to chemical exposure is a 35-year-old white male. It has nothing to do with you as a woman. The original breast cancer studies done in America were done on white males.
So when you are talking about your experience of being, is it the second or the third chairman of the BSU?
Of the BSU, right. First it was Jimmy. Mariam was actually, then she didn't want it.
Right.
So then finally they had to elect, by default, Jimmy became.
Yeah.
So Jimmy, then Benny Stewart, then me.
All right. And so you said under your leadership of the BSU, you all created a child care center, the first child care center.
That was through the Associated Students.
Okay.
I was VP of the student. They wouldn't, let me get into that. They wouldn't let a black man be president of the student body. Charles Jackson had won the election before the previous semester, but Hayakawa intervened and threw out the election, and that then put in a white kid. I can't remember the man's name. He was progressive. We had a decent discussion with each other, and he didn't pull no punches or lied about it. When they would not let me be president of the student body, I went to the central committee. So, okay, what do you want? What do you think? How do we worked on a collective basis. I was not running around here thinking I'm all that in a cup of potato chips. It's working on a collective basis. And the central committee felt, okay, go ahead and run for being vice president. I was looking for our state educator there, Wilson Rouse. He was in charge of the state education. I forget the title. Okay. And he had said some rough stuff about black studies. He didn't understand that Marianne and James said, get a double major. One in black studies, learn to love yourself, cut out the self-hatred. But also, if you're talking about building your community, either get it in science or business or whatever other aspects, bring the skills back to the community. We're talking about technical skills as well as self-love. I had thought, and I got the word back from Bill Thompson, that okay, Wilson Ryle was waiting for me to show up, and we're going to have this discussion and try and smooth things out. And he was here in this building waiting for me in Bill's office. I thought, out of courtesy and professional courtesy and all, he would be in Hayakawa's office. State superintendent of schools, you would have him there. See, the title just came back to me. He wasn't. And so I'm with my buddy, William Savage, who's passed on, COVID killed him. And I've been knowing him since junior high school. Old junior high school buddy's still running with me. And I said, man, this makes no sense. Ken Maley is gay, and he's up here talking to a woman. This is illogical. and he's in here with Hayakawa. I mean, we got to go see what these people are up to. Come on, let's go have a drink with Hayakawa. So I had a drink with Hayakawa, some teacher scotch. He was drunk. He was drunk. Okay, dancing and being silly everywhere. I asked him in the old administration building, he had this beautiful African statue, birds and stuff, and I asked, okay, what does this symbolizes and what is this part, what is religion? He knew nothing about it. He looked at it strictly from a European perspective. Oh, it's so pretty. And I said, damn, all this artwork, and he doesn't know a damn thing about it. But then that's when they offered me to be vice president of the student body. They had, later we found out, they had white folks running around. You can't let him be president of the student body because they're going to take the money and go buy guns and kill the white people. So I definitely had to make sure, let me set up the child care center. This is what our agenda is, building, not this nonsense that these bigots are running around trying to advance their careers on the backs of black people. We see this today, even with our own black politicians here in the city. Oh, I see it on the Air Districts Board. Oh yeah, let's get on the Human Rights and Health Environment Committee. And all they do is move on to the state stuff. They ain't cleaned up nothing in the black community. That's another discussion of what I'm doing now, but it's part of what our philosophy was in setting up black studies. You take the skills back to your community and teach others. And that's what I'm doing now, working with a medical student, brilliant sister. She already has a PhD in organic chemistry, and she's working on an MD. She's looking at genetic variances and increased susceptibility, as I am in terms of that, and working to raise the standards to a whole nother level so that we could stop this premature death of black people, because you'll find this throughout the nation. And in COVID in Louisiana, it's a lie. They talked about the Mardi Gras then caused everybody to have this elevated. Well, 70% of the deaths in the first wave of COVID was in the black community, because the black community sits what they call Cancer Alley, because the land is so cheap, and they put us there. And that, think of it, if you're running a marathon and you're already running with 200 pounds on your back, these chemicals, which we are susceptible to, and they've known it for over 40 years in the scientific literature, and that then you're exposed to the COVID. True, weight is a factor, obesity, diabetes, but then you already have this burden of chemicals and you're susceptible to it. They have calculated susceptibility. How do you transfer susceptibility into cancer risk? They don't have a formula. That's what I'm arguing about now with the state, and I'm preparing a document on this whole issue, because I measured Dr. Palmer, dear friend of mine, who is white, in the chemistry department here at State, brilliant scientist, analyst. He did the analysis on the Soviet space station before any American astronauts went on board. And it's that equipment that we use to measure benzene levels at ground level where the babies play at, high-risk population. Because EPA has it, because again, that white orientation in the science, 6 feet off the ground, and the rest, average height of a white male, as they calculate. And nothing to do with us, of the people who are most crucially affected. Because when I went into Bayview, Pete and I, 55% of all the babies in the first grade at Carver Elementary School are asthmatic. I go back 10 years later, Emily Thompson went to San Francisco State as well. Small world, how you run into your associates. 85% of the babies in the first grade are asthmatic. 85%, an increase, not a decrease. And what the school district did, that's why I preach on math, get the math, so they can't lie to you. What the school district did is they turned around and started busing the kids around, so you change the population, so you artificially lower the numbers for asthmatic victims. So I don't care what, if it's film, business, English, whatever, go get the math.
So when you were the president of the BSU,
Yes, ma'am.
what were other things you would say that your cohort contributed towards?
What we did?
Yeah.
We actually brought Kwame Ture on campus to speak, and he stimulated people in thinking in terms of moving. That's why it helped us then move to set up the different organizations and the different disciplines. I funded this through the AS. When I was VP of the student body, we first in the BSU we set up the masters and the faculty through Njasani threw it in the garbage can and hit it. He later became governor in South Africa. He was from South Africa for this little fake state that they created before, as an interim before Mandela was released and actually became chairman. He sold his soul and went back to South Africa to do this. So that's who he was. I was hoping back then that he would bring that next educational level to bring, because later I wanted to see a PhD in Black studies, in ethnic studies. When we'll talk about that when I was adjunct, associate adjunct dean under Phil McGee. But we were pushing for these type of things, the masters and all, reinforcing the teaching credential we had, and taking it to the next level. Mediocrity. One thing Eugene Johnson and I are the proudest is that we had more black students and students of color going into medical school than all 18 other campuses put together. And I run it to some of our students, graduates, in my efforts here in San Francisco and in the Bay Area. They graduated. They're in medical school. Black doctors, women and men. Others had to go to Cuba, and so others went to Ohio State, all over this nation where you can get into medical school. We produced that by that. We had the influence in media. Johnny Jenkins was one of the first black cameramen at Channel 7 News. So we organized the professional groups because your job is to get out of here. This is a stepping stone. Don't get caught up in this. It's to move on. Take the skills and move on. Go get your doctorate. Be the leader, not a follower. Be the innovative person. That's what we push. Innovation. Creativity. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, I agree with Einstein. That's the epitome of insanity. If you think that you're going to have a different outcome, it ain't going to happen.
Can you speak to how being the chairman of the BSU and a member of the BSU influenced your career?
My career, again, I was blessed. I was lucky, blessed, in that when I came to state, the strike influenced this university and a perspective how education should be. What should we be doing? It influenced the science department. I had the head of graduate division of chemistry, Dr. Ramsey, set up, he saw I had a gift in it. I used to make moonshine in high school. I had straight A organic chemistry. Actually, if you go on YouTube, look up Mr. Wizard. It was a science program. I used to have my face every Saturday morning in the TV set. At 7 years old, I was asking my dad for a chemistry set. It was one of those things. looking at my skin and seeing how it's divided and cracked and all this, and looking at the wood ruler, not plastic, and seeing how the cells were being shaped in the wood. Then I started dealing with atomic theory and said, oh, this is composed of this, out of like the Greeks did. Same, I forget the term they use. And I went into my dad got CD, he was in the Navy, so he couldn't play with me and teach me the chemistry on third grade. But they did give me a chem set. So I've just mixed shit up and everything. In high school, I got into it. My teacher happened to be working on his PhD at Stanford. Took me and my buddy Tom Shelton, who went over to Berkeley, and I went to State, and he became a lawyer. I'm running chemistry and environmental chem. So that I saw a whole nother world. I mean, that's like taking me from a 1928 lab to the cutting edge of science in '67. It's like, wow. Then he took us to San Jose State, and you see the chemical engineering department, and all this like Jack Nicholson in the movie Batman. Where does he get all these wonderful toys? It's like, I'm seeing all these wonderful toys you can play with in science. I was able to, gee, I didn't bring that CD with me. When Pete and I did the air studies in '98, we took the children, the gifted children from Carver, and made them our junior scientists and our assistants. I taught the class over there for about a week with the children. So they're familiar with the equipment we were using, what are we doing. Valerie, little sister, she knocked out trigonometry in the 5th grade. And she went on and got her PhD in science. Her counselor couldn't tell me in what discipline. And another young lady went on and got her master's in science. So if you work with it and expose and really work with it, not pretend. They were up there, open up the canister, the tungstenite canisters, do the air and the rest of it, and they're holding with the bags, and they're playing with getting the equipment to get it to work. So the samples then we take into the lab. Then we took them into the lab, the mass spec lab of the old science building that's now torn down, building a new one. We had them in there. And then little sister said, looked underneath the table and said, you need to change that. That's a fire hazard. Because they had a copper coil coming out of the mass spectrometer that was dripping water into the electrical sockets. And that we had the circuit breakers. And old men didn't bend over to go look. And we had to rewire the lab. But she got on the computer, because in the old days, we would just have to go through charts and print out charts and try till we get a match. Now the computer does that. So we said, yeah, put the line up, okay, hit it. She turned around, and it was illegal chemical discharge from a dry cleaning plant was in the school's air. Because the school didn't have no open windows. And the janitors didn't even know how to turn on air conditioning to circulate the air in the school. Because we also picked up ammonia from the rats that were in the school. So we did do some good in that and forced them to get some engineers to come teach them. And they started the first citywide asthma task force to address the high rates of asthma in African people. I have my theories on that as well. That's another topic of discussion. The strike influenced the chemistry department. Dr. Ramsey created the course Chemistry in the Human Environment. He hired me to be his research assistant and to be the TA for the course. We went out in the Sunnydale projects and we sampled 158 people, black folks, and we had 8% it broke out evenly, 4% with heterozygote, 4% homozygote, having a trace and not, out of the 158. We did fat titration on hamburger meat on the stores in the area. We busted 2 of them. One had 55% fat, and it's still there, but they can't package their meat. They have to ship it in already done. And the grocery store, it used to be next to Colonel Sanders on Geneva, now it's apartment buildings. They had 70% fat in it. So that little patty shrunk up a whole lot when you cook it. But it showed the students and the rest that, hey, you don't need a PhD to make a difference in people's lives. You take the knowledge you learned here and you can impact and bring about a better quality of life. That was part of what we were teaching. And I'm so proud and honored that Dr. Ramsey took his time and created this, and this is what got me pumped. And I've been all over the world now. Africa, Asia, and still here at home base in San Francisco in the Bay Area. I've worked in every community in the Bay Area, from West Oakland, Vallejo, Richmond, as well, where you have these impacts of chemicals that are impacting black lives and communities of color, because we're always by this garbage and junk. So that's part of the spin-off from the strike and how it's influenced my life. That's what I've been doing. All along, just like my picture that I shared with you, I'm over there at UC Berkeley teaching college level chemistry, Chem 102, to middle school students. But I put a little twist on that. You have a child, Mom, okay, and Dad. You don't have Dad, Mom, come on in here. And you had to take a class with me on Saturday. And the test was, how many grams of sugar can you dissolve in 50 milliliters of water at 50 degrees Fahrenheit? And we put the experiment up and set up, and they spilled shit all over the scales and everything else. I said, see, that's how O.J. Simpson got cut loose, sloppy lab work. Everything in here is contaminated. So they understood what their child is doing is not just make-believe, fill in the blanks. They had to write the hypothesis, the conclusions. Look at some of the 8th graders. My two top, you swear, was a PhD. They had timetables of when this changed, everything. They got into it. And one of the young man, his mom went to San Francisco State. She was living with me in the dorms. We used to party together and everything. Small world. And those are the things. And what, as I shared earlier, one of my students, when I was in a car accident, was my treating physician at physical therapy. And she recognized me. And she said, you worked the shit out of me in class. Because they had homework 7 days a week. And what I also did is I wrote a book for their parents. This is what you would do with your child every night. Period. And so it took it at another level. You educate the whole family. The whole family, those that want to do the cultural nationalist perspective, the whole family. Period. For growth. Oh, Sister Penny, the parents said, that man is crazy. He got my baby to 1 o'clock in the morning working on this shit. And so I had to go bring flowers to the secretary and say, thank you for covering me. And at the end, the parents are giving me a hug and kisses at the end, because it is your bias that you think your children can't perform. You letting these other people tell you what they can't do. Don't put those limitations on your child. Don't let them. Let them grow. And like little sister told me, you worked the shit out of me. But if it wasn't for you and my mother, I would not have gotten through medical school. And to put me in the same sentence with your mother, I don't care what any of you got to say. I already got my reward right there. I had to call my old dean up. I said, George Gagne, the assistant dean. I said, hey, I don't care if we die tomorrow. Shit, we did it. We got women and women of color into science and medicine. And one of my babies, one of our kids, cured my butt without drugs. She electrocuted me. and got my nerve to go back inside my vertebrae after this woman hit me with a big old truck and put a truck inside the trunk of my old Mercedes. I'm still driving it because it has steel. And she worked it. And that's what you want. You always wonder what happens to your students, what goes on after they leave your class. And I had the blessing to have the benefit of that. And this is what you want. This is what we were working towards. Is that involvement in the community. When we did the work, we did lead analysis as well in the soil, flame photometry here, and actually I taught the course when I was teaching environmental chemistry and engineering at Berkeley. We did it on the mass AA atomic absorption unit and measuring the whole 9 yards and having the students. And they had a feature. We thought that the kids handled it better than the undergraduate students over there at Berkeley. Don't put the limitation. Same here. Just like I love that Brian turned around and said, okay, I was doing research as a sophomore. Okay? Anytime you teach, you stay away from your teachers, any of your professors. Oh, you're not a graduate student. I don't need you as my assistant. If you could think it, go do it. If you remember clearly history in Birmingham when the babies were blown up in the church, it is the youth, elementary school children, junior high, filling up the jail. And then part of that piece was that then we need to have a say. We're getting our ass whooped. We're going to jail. And that was part of the movement. We are all in this together. And I've always found when, your elders are telling you, be leery of that. Somebody about to run a game on you. Make them make sense to you. Explain to you. We wanted to develop critical thinking and analysis. We need desperately thinking men and women. Not robots. Be critical of me. That's what I expect you to do. Just because I said it don't mean it's absolute. I'm not Pope. I'm not claiming infallibility. Okay? I'm a human being. I screw up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tompkins. We're going to wrap it up soon.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But one question is, you spoke about one of the members being from South Africa.
Yes.
Can you kind of speak to the relationships that Africans in the diaspora were having within the BSU, the other organization, and or just San Francisco State University in that particular period?
I can deal with San Francisco State and what we did and how we addressed it, and how we fought the institution trying to divide us.
Okay.
Because we hired African students to work in the BSU. That's another thing, how the institution fought. As Dr. Garrett talked about, that we had work-study contracts. I had negotiated as VP of the student body because the AS had lost the work-study contract. I renegotiated. For every $1 I got out of AS, I can get $5 federal dollars. And you got to understand, back then, minimum wage was $1.62 an hour. Okay, so $1 can get you a lot. So we expanded in terms of different services. We created. I was going around telling them, go write and create it. So we had not only students from the continent working in the organization, we also funded the African Students Association as well. They had their own. Mostly was a lot of Ethiopian students at the time, because summer skill and all had this affinity for Ethiopia. And so there was a large constituent. Understand, the university makes a lot more money off of international students than you. they got to have a year plus all their money up front. And they're charged 3 times the money. Plus, the campus gives 1/3 back, and the university gets 2/3 of the money in their pocket. So this is not, it's a money maker. That's what part of the argument some years ago was about foreign students, and that this is a taxpayer supported institution, but you have, that was a big argument over at Berkeley. You have an imbalance, and you're kicking out American students to bring, well, it's about the money. And that we had a working there, she was part of starts with the M. Oh, shoot. Miyaza was her name. And she worked with her. She was in the office doing the work and etc. So we had an ongoing relationship because the university always wanted to split us. Split African students from, you don't need to be with them. In the orientation, the federal government, when they brought them in, had them on buses and would then take the Ethiopian students and people and tell them, don't, and drive them through Fillmore, don't deal with them. This is the federal government. They're slick. Watch out for them. Putting these negative in there. It's like, damn, I gotta watch them. And so that's part, so that's why we conscientiously went and no, come on in, have it, here, share with us. You ain't got money to pay your rent, here, we'll kick out of, we put our checks, all our checks together to make sure nobody went hungry. Everybody's rent is covered. It is a collective, true collective operation, and nobody went hungry. Some of the African students weren't used to that in kicking in. They found, you know, because they were preaching capitalism, me, and never about we. It's about me. And if you remember the old civil rights song, it's we shall overcome, not me. And when we worked together, we were able to achieve a lot. It's when the system broke it. It's like when I was BSU chair, let me slip back and I wanted to make sure I got this in. Ron Bentley, another member of the Central Committee, when I was living on Randolph Street, pointed out that the FBI put a camera across the street from my apartment, looking into the apartment. And then another buddy who worked in the audiovisual in the library, where you check out the cameras and everything else, that they had bugged the BSU office. So we never talk in the office. We want to talk, come on, let's go out for a walk. Let's go get a cup of coffee. This is what, I'd wave to the camera all the time. Then we throw a rope and pull it down, and they come back and put another one up. So we knew. We had the cops following us. And then when Slim was driving his car's old Chevy and following us around and the rest of it. So we are under serious surveillance, and all these rumors, like I said earlier, don't make him President Stu body. He'll buy guns and kill the white folks. So it's some of the silliness, the bigotry that has been transposed, and some of it's been institutional. We don't really understand the roots of it. But that's part of it. They had the cameras, we were under surveillance, but we still went on. We still had our meetings. We still tried to bring about unity. When I was VP of the student, I made sure all student organizations, PACE, Asian, Raza, Native American, everybody get your money, just write up a program. You know, I'd turn around, I'm walking across campus, and jealousy and stupidity. Oh, you think they're smoking a joint over there by the business building? I heard brothers talking shit, and I just went over and said, look, man, let me tell you something. Go write up a goddamn program and I'll get you the damn funding for it. Talking shit on the sideline don't get it. Wino could stand on the corner and talk shit. What are you going to do to create something and make a difference? I just had finished with expanding the work-study program. 5-fold. So there's all this money. What happened to the next group that came behind us? No officer can be paid working in a student organization. No outside telephone lines. If you're an organization, how can you function? They took away systematically. Papo, who studied in Tabiti, couldn't have a telephone, couldn't have paid people organizing to build. So it was like, then they restricted funding going to outside organizations for work study. Being involved. I worked over in Chinatown for a summer. Over there in China, had a great time. But all of this systematic, it wasn't an accident. They did not want us communicating with each other. They love cultural nationalist politics, us hating on each other, not giving a damn about each other. That they put all the roadblocks in there structurally. With Phil McGee, he asked me to be the adjunct associate dean in 1980. I did it until April. Couldn't take it no more. What I did do is do all and I didn't bring the sheets. I think I have a couple old sheets of the data sheets. I taught a course, $8.99, independent study. That's where I don't know what the numbers are now. Shaka had to sign it off. And I did all the math on setting up and surveying all 4 departments and set up and said the database for Phil to argue before the Academic Senate to set up the current Masters in Ethnic Studies. Now the departments went on and developed further. Some got their own MA in it. Africana Studies didn't. They're still running under Ethnic Studies, as I understand. Am I correct? Didn't develop it. In my time in the community, here in Bayview Hunters Point, Dr. Gillis did the work. African American women had the highest breast cancer rate in the world. I never saw anybody from Black studies in our community to come and address the issue. It was me and Dr. Gene Mayberry, brother who's in the picture, he's a psychologist. None. And when we set up Black studies, that's where you should have been. If you tell me, oh, I love African people, then why the hell ain't you over there helping and loving and trying to help them survive and live? Why must they die at this alarming rate? The highest in the world. More than any third world nation was right here in San Francisco. And that's not what we fought for. That's not what I fought for. That's not what I've learned. That's what Brian showed me, how to take these technical skills and bring it back and make a difference. You don't need a damn doctor to save lives. What you learn here can make a difference if you really study. That's where I got mad at one of the students. I was doing an internship about 10 years ago. She did an internship with me, and she was copying off of the internet. We're trying to make a booklet and stuff and help deal with chemical exposures. And I lost it. And I said, what are you doing? You trying to send us to jail? I'm looking for your interpretation of what you read and develop so we can put this in here to save lives. Later on, little sister, to me, I'm more pissed at ethnic studies because she was also getting a major in chemistry, but also in Black Africana studies. And nobody taught her the importance of it. And don't copy. Faculty, make sure they're not copying off of the damn internet and putting it in your paper. Make sure it's their thoughts, their thinking. Because later, after I cussed out and the rest of it, she did get it. And then I also then wrote a letter of recommendation for her to Cornell for her PhD in organic chemistry. So, oh, you trying to make up to me now, organic chemistry? But it's like you smile and you're happy. She wanted to work on makeup for black women and the differences, because the model again is the European, just as I talked about risk assessment. The model is them and not us. And now looking at genetic variances in the population and what diseases affects us and how our skins are different and susceptible, and that no, you do need, it ain't based on racism, this is based on science. And I hope in the department will look at these factors for the expansion of our lives, because our lives are important. Don't throw them off. But we need the scholarship. We need, if it's social sciences and economics, where are the courses in stopping the economic plight of African people here in the Bay Area? The gentrification. Where's the political strategy out of the political courses? Part of it I'll share with you in the science department and other colleges. Feel that ethnic studies is not carrying their load. They're looking for the scholarship. The scientists there have to have a proposal every 2 years out. How are you bringing money in to the college? How are you building the university? You're required. What has ethnic studies done? I have not seen one program from ethnic studies out there in Bayview or in Fillmore. I haven't seen it. I'm there every day. I'm on boards. I'm on the Southeast Clinic. I'm out here on Rafiki Wellness. I stay within my discipline, but I also look at the economics, because that's part of science is a business in America. So how in the hell you can't look at that? A holistic aspect, what Dr. Thornton said. You know, that's why I preach math, but you first have to understand the problem so you can select the right formula to solve the problem. We need problem solvers. That's what's motivated me all my life. I want to be a problem solver. I don't want to just talk shit about it or be the professional Negro and talk about it. How can we come up with a solution? That's where you deal with ideas. I'm now writing a piece to the state of California and to someone who I work with out here is now, I won't mention his name, but that's what my letter was. Come on. And do they have any good brisket over there in Sacramento? Because they don't have it in San Francisco. We couldn't find any. But it's those working relationships, and that I can't emphasize to the students, that we need your critical thinking and analysis, but that also requires you to study. We had PE classes. We'd argue the theories out. Nah, you full of shit. Man, I used to think something was crazy as hell. But you know what? That stimulation wasn't happening elsewhere. They were thinking way in advance of what possibilities can be. And then the challenge that I took on is that how do we implement it? That's what Eugene, Ron, and the rest of us on the Central Committee in mind. It's like Reconstruction after the war. That's why I don't emphasize so much on the strike, because it was a war. You look at the film and the stuff. But how do we build from this? We were able to get more men and women of color into the sciences and the professional community. But then you then have from Nixon and the rest of them, the reactionary and the recession, then they started fighting then affirmative action, because you just can't drop the first black person. Oh, they just got, no, you got to get a balance. And that's how you had UC Davis medical school and fighting affirmative action, and that policy is still in place to this very day. by whites. And I'm now sitting down, getting ready with the mayor. There's not one black doctor at the Southeast Clinic. We had them before, but yet their patient base is 60% black. We desperately need you. We desperately need this generation, because it's shown through the scientific literature. When I have somebody I can relate to, can understand my problems, then you have that empathy and that understanding, and you get better treatment of the patient. We don't have that. And that is also contributing to our death. So we're trying to get this mayor. We had human rights. Oh, that's reverse discrimination. Here's my dark side of the moon. And get this in, because we're dying. I ran the hospital lab. I've seen the worst of worst. And I've seen the best of best. And young sister who was given my echogram and slapping the jaw, she's from Atlanta. And she said, hey, I seen them kill us. But here at this hospital, they work to save you. So that's why I go to a trauma center. But I'm blessed it's near my house. But it's like, those are the things we need so desperately. Thinking men and women that are not caught up in this superficial bigotry that society, every time you turn on TV, what do you see? I'm a dope dealer. Black man is, turn on Fox News. I have where all 6 stations come up, and every time, oh, they got a black man robbing somebody. A black man, this stereotype just has contributed to the death of that young black man. And you have your own need. Another thing, when I was VP of the student body, I sat on Attorney General Younger's Commission on Community Police Relations for 3 years. I made the recommendations to them as a group of us on, one, hiring women, hiring people of color, standardization of training of police officers, because everybody had their own little thing to do. The 410 agencies, no uniformity. And then you come back and find out, to get into the police culture, you find black officers beating, stomping the crap out of your own people way beforehand. You don't, not just this incident, but here a few years ago, when they shot this little skinny black kid over there in Hunters Point, he had a knife, and these guys, you got a billy club, you can slap the damn knife out of his hand. I went off on the lieutenant. We were getting some food at Hard Knocks Cafe, and man, you in Officers for Justice? And yeah, I remember. Well, how in the hell can you justify 5 black cops shooting this kid? Couldn't one of your big ass go over there and tackle him? Could you take the baton and slap the knife out of his hand? That ain't what, and I forget the founder's name. I said, I'm one of the fools that voted to have black officers in and went before the state legislature. You are more the problem than they are. You were to prevent this type of stupidity, to prevent these senseless murders as interventions. I hear now, before I came here, I was listening to it, and they were talking about, if you standing by and you don't speak up, you guilty too. I'm for that. Take their homes, take their pensions. If that's, if your God is green, in America, sadly, that's what it is, then take it. Let there be consequences. Rather than going again and again and again to these funerals of young men and women. It ain't just black men, but you see the stereotyping with dope dealers, with criminals. When was the last time you seen on there a black man as a doctor on TV? If we're going to change, then we need to go back to preschool. That's what I'm proposing in a proposal. Go to preschool. Let the baby see me in a lab jacket. Let the baby see a woman in a lab jacket. Because unfortunately, Asians in San Francisco and the Bay Area are predominant. Then they don't, oh, it's them. No, you part of this. You the mothers and fathers of science and mathematics, if you know. That's what I wrote the course, the African and Native American contributions to science and mathematics. I taught Kemet math, and I taught Mayan math. Read Ivan van Sertima's work. They came before Columbus. You would have seen how, but I have my bias. Van Sertima has such a high, squeaky voice in that English. He acts Caribbean English. I couldn't stand his lecture. But brilliant scholar. Do you hear me? Brilliant. Brilliant. But that's my bias. Just like I couldn't stand Huey P. Newton's voice. He had a high squeak. I'd listen to Bobby all the time. That's just my bias, my hang up. But Bobby can get up there and talk to her, give him a bottle of scotch, and Bob's gone forever. But you know, that's my personal knowing people and etc. behind the scenes. Because we were part of that whole generation, that whole culture, that period. So I am a child of my period of time in history. I have my biases in it, and I try and recognize it for what it is. And then, again, I'm all about, as Dr. Thornton said, moving forward. I want to be a problem solver. I need each and every one of you students to graduate and go beyond. San Francisco State, think of it as junior high. Not high school, junior high. To move on into your professional careers and to be that leader, whatever you choose. I won't tell you what to do. Just be the best at it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tompkins. I think it's a great
Oh,
way.
hell, Ray. Police don't call me doctor. They have a few other adjectives when they made me lie on the ground.
Yeah, I think this is a great space to stop.
Okay.
You know, so thank you so
I'm
much,
old
Ray.
school.
I
Thank you. I like
appreciate it.
that.
And yeah, so much more information that we can add to our oral history archive. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give these pictures to Yoko,
Yes.
and she's going to just take a picture of them,
Okay.
and we're going to give them back to you.
I
And then
trust you.
I'll meet with you.
He's the only one.
Yeah.
They old, so they curl up. That
Oh.
was in 1980 when I stepped down as dean. See, because when I'm adjunct associate dean, I also set up an exchange program with North Africa. Okay, I don't know if you want to put that on tape. When I was here at Ethnics with Phil, I also found money, federal money that they were doing to train teachers how to teach. Because damn it, at that time, most of our students that got out of black economics or black political science were getting F's when they went to mainstream courses. So that means you're not teaching this dialectically. You are not teaching the whole and how we are a subset of it. It is, all right, let's then, I got some money. You know, everybody gets stuck on themselves and didn't want to do it. Then I got $55 million from Libya. That's in 1980. Angela Davis was going to proofread Gaddafi's Green Book. I sent a student over there. If you're working with me, we going together. And I don't cut you loose. Farouk, he screwed up and they sent his butt back. Okay. Then he still wanted to do business with us. Okay. And who was it? The provost said, Ray, Romberg was president, said, Ray, we want you to get the money. Therefore, you expand ethnic studies and not be dependent on state dollars. And that's what I'm looking at, the business of education. How do we expand it in this international market? So what is our explanation that? So what if we gave the money back in 3 years? Money market was paying 12.4%. So if it drops down to 10%, $55 million on the interest on that, I got about $16 million I can put in $1980 into ethnic studies. They did not understand the business of education and how this is a business on an international scale. And it's a shame. and that we never grew. At the 40th anniversary, Wade, I'll give credit to Wade Nobles, Dr. Nobles, to say, so we didn't understand business then of education, and we don't now. I said, okay, Wade, I'll give you your due props on that one. And we walked up, because Wade's in my pictures. Wade made it. He's not in daishiki, but brother did bring a bottle of you know that commercial scotch that they advertise. He brought me Royal Crown, bottle of Royal Crown.
Was it in a purple bag?
Yeah, in the purple bag. You got it. I like
Commercials, it's always in
my
like
Grey
a purple
Goose.
bag.
Have you touched that, my sister?
You met Sydney?
No,
I sent
no.
everybody to Sydney.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm a history major and African studies minor.
Okay.
This senior year, working on this project.
She's doing an independent study.
Yes, awesome. Nice to meet you, Sydney.
And this is a student from
I'm ready.
Okay.
She did. It's so great to meet you.
What do you want to do after you do? Beyond this.
Professor in African studies.
Okay.
I want to teach like intro classes, but hopefully at community colleges.
Okay. Then I'm like I told the rest of her, go get the map. Go bid. No. Do you want to run it?
That's what my dad always said.
Do you want to run it? I have a question you can answer for yourself. Do you want to run it, or do you want them to run you? Oh, well, then I'd rather count the money and the dollars, and that's what I was talking about in terms of faculty and how we change a position into converting into dollars and stuff. That's a business. I also take a business law course, so you understand contracts and business law, because education is a business. Don't get into this mythology bullshit. It's a business, and if you're talking about independence or sustaining Africana studies, or how you wish to call it, then you have to find ways to finance it. You have to look at the international market. What can you contribute? When I'm in Africa or in Asia, I love going overseas. I love being treated as a human being. They ask me, hey brother, can you help me? When I was in Vietnam, hey brother, or Laos, can you help me? When I'm cleaning up the water or not letting them screw it up. In Africa, when I was over there setting up an orange juice extraction plant and doing bottled water because they didn't have a clean glass of water in Ghana. Nigeria, I got my graduate course in corruption. I ain't gonna fake it. These Negroes, I was up there. Oh, Nigeria, got my graduate. I'm sorry, baby, but I got my graduate course. I went in, and after I left here in '80, I then was setting up an airline system for Woolaway. And Osuji was running his business, and Dove Charter Airline. I had a wet lease. I had 727 ready with pilots and crew, and I had helicopters to fly around to the different capitals and also then fly them. It was so corrupt. It's amazing how he said he was worth 60 million, but they moved the decimal point over and it was 6 million instead of 60. And then when I hit the airport, see, that's when I knew I was in trouble. Because Osuji said two beautiful African women. Monkey in the middle, right? One on one arm, one on the other. Oh, you love our African women, the bottom heavy. I didn't come over for this. I have 1.4 billion line of credit set up with the Taiwan, with the Lau family, because Boris, who went to San Francisco State, was my campaign manager, went into finance, and Howard Lau was, his grandfather was Chiang Kai-shek's runner buddy. So we had the Lau family banking and bankroll 1.4 billion. And these fools are trying to run game and the rest of it. I said, hell no. I stayed, it's a small world. My cousin was marrying Andre, whose father was in power, was minister protocol for Nigeria. And I stayed with them for 6 weeks until I can get out the country. And I gave my $40,000 that they fronted me with so she can go pay the officials and get me out the country. But it's business. Then later I went back and they talked me into working on water purification because the river state is so polluted from the oil. That's why they burning up and blowing up the pipes. Not that they crazy. They can't drink the water and it's killing the fish. Just like the brothers over in Somalia, they're up there attacking the ships because they sit up here and take these trawlers and take all the fish out of the ocean, and there's nothing for them to live off. So that's why they're doing it. It's economic.
Dr. Tompkins, would you like some water?
Would
you like some water?
Oh no, then you have me running to the bathroom like an old man.
This back?
No!
Okay.
Okay.
I did that, whoops.
You okay?
Went backwards.
Okay.
I'm cool. But no, that's for you to keep it.
Do you have a
But I
photo
have to
of
go
the,
to the
upstairs?
little boy.
I'm sorry, I can take
Okay,
you.
yeah. He gave us this photo.
Keep going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's yours.
This is a very great, she's been going through
I
all
have
this
not
in
seen
Palo Alto archive. I was trying to do this.
He's Palo Alto?
Yeah, I'm on the board
I'm
for
talking a
the.
little bit.
Really?
It was Nairobi Day
Yeah,
School.
yeah. Do you
Mary
know
Hoover?
Dr. Omuwale?
I knew Mary
Yeah.
Hoover.